All right. So the topic of lesson 2 is the mass boring? It's a very straight up, very straightforward lesson. Um, I would, teach a lot about the Eucharist in my years past, and I realized that I never really tackled this core issue. That is the fact that you and I often feel bored in mass, and there's no level of theology I can teach you for that to change largely. So I created this lesson, and it's largely a discussion lesson. So those of you watching this virtually are just going to have to pretend like you're part of the discussion. And what we're going to do is two things. We're going to, well, maybe three. We're going to first see why things are boring. Why are we bored? And then we're going to ask if that applies to Mass and why. And then we're going to, step 3 of the lesson is what are we going to do about it? The only part of this lesson you need to take notes is lesson part 3. How do we make Mass less boring? But first, we got to identify why we're bored. So, to not pick on the Mass, we need to recognize that we're bored with a lot of things. Golf. All you do is hit the ball. Why don't you just pick it up and move it? It's too repetitive. Why are things boring? Let me erase my my board here. Reason number 1 why things are boring is because they're repetitive. What? Oh, that's not nice. I find basketball boring because I don't know the rules or how to play it. Okay, why is basketball boring for you? Because you lack understanding. You don't know much about the game. And so naturally, if you're watching something that you don't understand, yeah, it's boring. Very good. Speech and debate, all they do is talk. Tell me about it, Kenyani. Oh, you're in speech and debate? Okay, tell me. Now, what do you say to this person? Yeah, but okay, so elaborate. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot more, but you got to get on the inside largely or experience more this person to understand all that goes into it. So what I put on the board is why do we find things boring? Is because there's a lack of action. We want to be entertained. And Kenyani is saying there's more action than you realize. Golf, enough said. Boys soccer. Girls soccer is apparently not boring. I'm just kind of challenging you. Like, I don't know what it is. I think doing busy work is boring because there's actually no point to it and it just wastes time. I think that's the point of it. But yes, it's boring when it doesn't have a purpose. Things are boring when they lack purpose. And you don't understand it. Football boring. There's always one person. Always. Most of the time, there's always one person in the class that says football's boring. And the football players are just like, and then don't go to the games as the football players. It's it is what it is. Volleyball is boring. How y'all feel? You don't have to be offended. How do you feel? If you don't understand it, which we already said, if you don't get on the inside, if you don't, yeah, if you don't understand all that goes into it, yeah, I've never played competitive volleyball, but I've never been bored by volleyball. But that's everyone's different. Golf, Golf. Nobody's put tennis yet. Golf. It's too quiet. They lack noise. Wait, what? It's too quiet. Let's face it. Y'all like a good loud party. Golf. Poor golf. It's too slow. It's too quiet. Golf, I find it's not interesting or fun to watch, not even fun to play. I'd much rather watch football, baseball, or soccer. They're much more action-packed. Okay, so we have a good list of why things are boring. Now let's turn to the Catholic Mass, and we're going to look at the stats as far as your level of boredom at Mass. And that's pretty accurate from what I get from the other classes right there. Yes, some of the time, probably less than 50%. But yeah, I'm bored at Mass most of the time. And then there's two or three, probably two of you that say all the time. And then there's two awesome souls in here that are just so in love with Mass. All right. Why? Sometimes I feel very unmotivated and I don't know how to really feel in the church. It's very hard for me. Okay. Struggle with emotion. Because I don't understand it. Ding, ding, ding. Why are things boring? Why is Mass boring? Because you don't know what's going on. Thank you for your honesty. Good job. I think that seeing everything, how it all comes together is cool. Okay, so you are not bored, largely. I find Mass boring when the priest doesn't get into it. For example, Father... Okay. This is being recorded. I enjoy everything except if the homily is not that great. So the homily is what a lot of y'all are looking for. You're looking for an engaging homily where the priest can just talk from the heart and talk on a level that can really engage you. And I don't blame you, and I certainly hope for that too. But it's just not always there. In fact, depending on where you go to church on Sunday, it's not there half the time. It's not there much of the time. And so that's a struggle. That's a struggle. Because it's not engaging, it's not personal to me. Okay, so I understand that the homily, because it's the most human interaction, just a guy standing and talking, where he should be talking from the heart, may not always be the case. This being said, what can we do? I'm going to start the list, making a list of things we can do so the Mass is no longer boring. And this is what I say about the homilies, because frankly, on Sunday Masses, the priest is obligated to give a homily. It doesn't have to be long at all, but he is expected to give a reflection on the gospel and whatnot. But every other day of the week, like even in a Turling's Thursday Mass, the priest can read the gospel and go sit down. It's optional. In other words, if it's optional, the homily is not the high point of the Mass. What's the high point of the Mass? The Eucharist. The homily is only supposed to prepare you to get Jesus. Whether there's a homily there or not, you're still looking for something better. Even if it's the best homily you've ever heard, it can move you, it can stir you, and it should help you get ready for the Eucharist. But the greatest part is the Eucharist. Even if you don't feel ready to receive the Eucharist, just to witness it and be deeper in Christ's presence and see that miracle happen. So, how do we make the Mass less boring? Lower your expectations for the homily. In fact, don't invest in the homily. Sometimes the best way not to be disappointed is to lower your standards. Plan on a bad homily. And then what? I'm not saying blow off. You can do two things. One, you can write your own homily. What do I mean by this? I don't expect you to, prepare a homily for the whole week, every week. But if you're really not connecting to the priest that's preaching, if he is not engaging, if you just don't understand, you can open up that missal. You can read the gospel again. You can say, how does this apply to me? And maybe the gospel doesn't make sense to you. Go to the first reading. I promise you the responsorial psalm, if they take the time to read it, that will connect to you, because that's a very simple prayer from the heart. And then the second, one of those readings, something's going to stand out to you, and you get to pray with it. You have to ponder it. Do I live this way? What is God asking me? How can I apply this to my life? Write your own homily, and it's more personal, and it helps your personal relationship with Jesus, perhaps. Okay? You're allowed. I know I'm recording this, but you're allowed to zone out during the homily, but you got to zone in to Jesus deeper. Another thing with the homily is it's not the high point. I already said this. So focus on Jesus in the Eucharist. That's number 2. Focus on Jesus in the Eucharist. Make that the high point. Make that reception of communion the very goal and purpose as far as why you're going to Mass. Because if you understand that, which of course I've tried to do the past 2 lessons, if you really understand the power of that sacrament, nothing compares to it. All right, so I got 2 things. We're going to get a list of no less than 10 things, and you will have to tell me on your test no less than 5 things of how to make the Mass less boring. Some of the time it's boring because I'll be tired of the priest. Just talk about random stuff that doesn't relate. It gets boring. It depends on the priest. You see, there's a common trend here. It's about the priest. It's about the priest. It's about the priest. And I don't deny the fact that if awesome priest over here is saying the Mass and boring priest over here is saying the Mass, that there's a totally different energy level. I do not deny that at all. What I'm saying is you, child of God, need to work with that. Whatever priest you get, you're going to get a lot of priests throughout your life, hopefully. You got to make the most of all of them. Mass is boring because I don't understand anything that they're saying. I have bad ADHD and tend to get bored and distracted. This is probably reason number 2 why y'all get bored. Y'all's attention span is rough these days. What is the average human attention span in 2020? Seconds. You're right there with the goldfish, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty bad. It's because you spend how many hours a day in front of a screen entertaining you, not even just like doing homework on your computer. How many hours of digital entertainment do you get a day? You think 1 or 2 hours a day?
Yeah, I'm not on my phone very much.
Okay, that could be Brian Fontenot's story, and that's great. The recommendation is actually about an hour. What's the average for all teens in America?
6 hours.
5. 5 freaking hours a day. That's 2 movies and a lot of social media. That's what that is. And you don't even watch movies. You watch a lot of TV shows, and then you're on social media for hours and hours and hours. Oh, it's 1 a.m.? Oh, crap. Where'd my night go? I haven't even started my homework.
I just watched it.
Thank you. You get a lot of it. You got a lot of resources for entertainment, a lot of engagement, and as soon as you're bored with a post, you work your thumb. You push it away. Get it out of here. Get it gone. And you're looking for something else. And what do you look at the average post for how many seconds? Yeah, because you got a lot to go through. Why? Because it never ends. Because you got to go on for infinity. And I tell you, when I started on Facebook, that was pretty much it. I never did much else. But there used to be a point where the feed would stop. And this is all that happened the past day or 2 or last time you checked. Now it's different. They make it so that it's endless. And that if I even refresh my feed, I'm going to get posts from 5 days ago because I didn't see them 5 days ago. And they're going to make it endless. They're going to give me more advertisements. And I'm going to look at them for 1.3 seconds, maybe if it's a really good one, 2.8. And we wonder why our attention span is 8 seconds. It's an issue. Anyways, so what do you do when this person has ADHD and everybody has ADD, myself included? A couple things you do have to recognize that you cannot compare your entertainment and your Netflix to the Mass. The Mass is not there to entertain you. You have to go on a deeper level, but it's hard to get to a deeper level if I can't train my mind. You simply need to be. I don't have a man. I'm not gonna. Everybody's different. Y'all watch TV and you're on your phones for different amounts of time for different reasons. So everybody's different. So I can't really give you a blueprint. But I think you really need to ask yourself what you're doing on your free time to engage your brain, to really focus on something. Basically, when you get 5 free minutes, can you just stop your day and talk to God and just sit and relax and maybe focus on one thing, which is God, your relationship, or that thing your parents said to you that really hurt or that really meant a lot? Can you just stay with that instead of checking your phone? These things are the things that show that I have control of my mind. So today, everybody in this room, including Mr. Peo, is going to get bored at Mass. Everybody today is going to get, I shouldn't say bored. Everybody today is going to get distracted in Mass. And everybody today has the option to say, oh, come back to the Mass. Oh, I got distracted. Oh, that's not for a few hours. Right now I need Jesus. Everybody in this room has that option. It's up to you if you do that or not. But Mr. Peo, I did that 3 times. And then the first reading happened. I gotcha. But let me tell you, if you can come back to Jesus through the whole Mass, you have no idea. And you may not feel really holy, and you might be really frustrated with your own brain, but you have no idea how much that means to Jesus. You have no idea how much he appreciates that effort. And if you keep putting in that effort, you're going to have a higher attention span. And you're going to be smart, and you're going to have a much better relationship with God. So I'm going to put, for how to make Mass less boring, never give into distraction. Never give in. Oh, while I'm at it, I was very distracted when I was in high school in Mass, of course, and very unmotivated. But I was an altar server, and that really helped. That really helped me get invested and prepare well for the Mass. And I would still daydream up on that. I sat in a corner on the altar where I literally could not hear the homily. It was like there's too much of an echo. So I couldn't try to get into homily. So I would just daydream about baseball. All my big hits this past week, all the big hits I want to do. I would just, even in that moment, I could have tried to, as best I could, to talk to Jesus. So maybe it would help you to get more active. You're at an age where you can be an usher. You're at an age where you can be a lector, and then next year a Eucharistic minister, an altar server. You can volunteer for CCD. I know at least 2 rebels, 1 junior, 1 senior, who are actually teaching little kid classes on a regular basis. And it's 2 boys. You'd think it'd be girls. But 2 boys who are actually teaching in the parish. Y'all can do that. That'll help you get engaged in Mass more. Okay. I find it boring because it's been the same every Sunday, my whole life. So that's number 1, repetitive. I find Mass boring because when we have a priest that's just slow and monotoned, it's boring. I want to have a priest that is excited to be there and a priest that will make you want to go to Mass. Sometimes the homily isn't very interesting. I don't find it boring. Some parts of the Mass make me unfocused. Gotcha. I find it boring because it isn't a priest that is exciting. I personally do not find Mass boring because the whole thing just gives off a feel of meditation. Nice. I think certain times Mass can become boring when things like music or the homily are not very good. However, most of the time when I go to Mass, I am engaged the entire time. I'm not Catholic. I'm only exposed to Mass on Thursdays at school. The only time I don't find it boring is if the priest is very engaging. He's easy to listen to, and his presence that makes me want to listen. Unfortunately, most of the time, their voices don't have a lot of presence, and it's very monotone, and it's easy to get distracted or tune him out. It's not that I find the Mass itself boring, because I do think that a Catholic Mass is a very beautiful experience and very different from any other service I've been to, but the priest is the one who makes or breaks it for me. Okay, and we've already talked about that. I think period now we're missing like a third of the class, if not a half of the class. But I think the number one reason for period 6 is the priest. And then there's the other struggles. We have a lot more to say and do. We got a lot more to add to this list. It's repetitive, right? It is. It is scripted. And we know, with the exception of the homily, we know exactly what's going to be said today. I could actually do it right now without actually transforming the bread into Jesus. It's all scripted. Here's the thing, though. How many times have you listened to your favorite song? A lot. Maybe even hundreds. Sure, or at least your favorite song from like 2 years ago that you kept coming back to. It could very well be hundreds. Hundreds. How many times have you seen your favorite movie or favorite TV show? A lot. 10, 20, maybe. Yeah, no doubt. Played the same video game 10, 20 times. You know what's going to happen. There's something by it. You keep going. Repetition ain't a problem, y'all. Repetition is not a problem. Some of y'all are the thing you love the most might be your sport, your club, your activity. You've been doing the same thing for 12 years, you know, some of y'all 10, 12 years. It's the same sport with the same rules, but you get into it, you love it, you're engaged with it. So repetition is not a problem. The problem is, what are you repeating? Mr. Peo, when I went to college, found Jesus, I started going to Mass every day of the week. I went to seminary, 4 or 5 years there, which means I did the math. I even moved down here, and when I moved down here for about 4 or 5 months, I was going to Mass every day, which means for a span of 8 years in my life, y'all, 8 years of my life, I did not miss Mass any day of the week for 8 years. That being said, I can't wait. I don't know if the day will come back because now I have kids in the morning. I got to take care of them in the morning. It's going to be hard to get to Mass. It'll be a while. Probably at least 2 or 3 more years before I can get to the daily Mass. That being said, repetition is not the problem. The problem is, are you engaged in what you're repeating? Lack of understanding. I got a couple things to help you with this one. I don't understand what's going on. Try this. Try reading the readings before Mass. Get to church 5 to 10 minutes early. Open the missal and go through the readings and read them and see what hits you just reading it. Because when you hear it from the lector, when you hear it from the priest, it's going to hit you on a deeper level. You're more prepared for it. Read the readings before the Mass. Sometimes you do need to read something 3 times for it to click. But if you just sit through Mass, okay, here we are. What are we talking about today? Okay, that's a good reading. I don't know if I get it. I don't know if I get it. I don't know if I get it. Okay, here's the homily. I really don't get the homily. You just went through Mass and you never understood anything, but you need to take more time with it. And so are you willing to read the readings before Mass? My dad had us Paoletti kids in the living room for 9 a.m. We read the readings. We drove to Mass for 9:30, and it was very helpful when I was your age. It was very helpful to get me into Mass, help me identify and make more sense of it. So that's one thing you can do. Follow along. Maybe not even, but open up the missal, Follow along in the missal. And that goes for the prayers of the Eucharist too. When the priest is doing all those long, boring prayers, you can follow along in the missal. And I'm telling you, if you read those prayers, they're very deep and they're very intense. So I don't understand the Mass. Hopefully you can learn more about it, and then go deeper into all the parts. Hopefully the Seder meal that we did last class open up your eyes to like the mystery and the profundity of the Mass, or the Eucharistic miracle I showed you in lesson 1. Some students have told me that's already helped them. All right, so you don't understand. There's not much action. Of course, the action is not external. Okay, so you need to engage your soul on a deeper, quieter level so that you can go deeper, and that's hard. Here's the thing, though. It's hard to get your soul moving at Mass if it's been dead for the last 6 days. If you're not praying to God from your heart every day, you're going to show up to Mass and you're going to love Jesus to whatever degree, but you're not ready. You're not ready to talk to him because you haven't talked to him in 7 days. You know? How we doing, Sydney? You bored with this lesson? What was I saying? Anybody remember? I was completely distracted by that.
If you haven't moved your soul.
Oh yeah. So if there's a lack of action, we recognize that in Mass the action's got to be in your soul. A lot of times our souls are dead because we haven't tried to unite them to God all week. So I tell you what, if you're bored at Mass, pray from the heart every day. You're supposed to do this. And if you're genuinely making these spiritual exercises, 5 to 10 minutes, change your life every day. 5 to 10 minutes of quiet. Open up your Bible. Open up your daily devotional. I got like 15 prayer books you can have. I'll just give them to you. Let it move your soul on a weekly basis. You're going to show up with a relationship, with a talking relationship with Jesus, and then Mass comes alive. But if you're not praying during the week, it's going to be dead. It's like showing up to that class that you really don't like. And you just don't do the homework because you don't like the teacher and you just don't care anymore, that class is always going to be miserable. But if you lean into a class that you don't like and you do the homework, then it can come alive. All right, so pray more. A lack of purpose. I mean, there's a lot of purpose in the Mass. I don't think that's your problem with the Mass. It's too quiet and it's too slow. Respond more. For both of these, respond more to the priest. Sing more. Oh, Mr. Peo, you don't want me to sing. Oh, no, you don't. It's a bad voice, Mr. Peo. Give it a shot. Mr. Peo doesn't have a great voice either. You're going to hear me singing. Not loud and obnoxiously, but I'm going to be singing because he who sings prays twice. And it does get me more prepared for Jesus in the Eucharist. And it does let me show God that I love him when I sing. All of these things. All right. How many do we have? Okay, for those of you watching virtually, here's our list on the board. Number 1, write your own homily. 2, focus on Jesus in the Eucharist. 3, never give in to distraction. 4, get more action? Active. Get more active, meaning like, thank you very much. Number 5, read the readings before the Mass. Number 6, follow along the Missal. Number 7, pray from the heart every day. 8, respond more to the priest. 9, sing more along with the cantor. The list can go on. I'm going to show you all a video, probably next class, because I don't know if we'll have time. I'm going to show you the video. It's from Father Mike Schmitz, and he says he's going to challenge the way you mentally approach Mass. And you can write down a couple more from him.
Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is the SAC Ch. So one of the things that I hear about from a lot of people, particularly those who have been raised Catholic, is I don't like going to Mass. Pause. I get it. When I was a kid growing up, we had a rule. The rule is of the church and of the Schmitz household was that if you are not sick, you are going to Mass on Sunday, because that's basically the rule, right? Mass on Sunday is a obligation. Actually, in fact, this is serious enough to be able to note this, to say that to intentionally skip Mass on a Sunday or a holy day is what they call immortal sin. So the 3 requirements for a sin to be mortal are: it's grave, that's grave matter. I know it's a sin and I freely chose to do it anyways, which means that if I know that skipping Mass on Sunday is a sin and I freely choose to do it anyways, that's not the same thing as I tried to go but I got stuck in a snowbank, or I tried to go but my child got sick and I couldn't go. Like, that's not the same thing. But I freely chose to do it anyways. That's what you call a mortal sin. That means I can't receive Holy Communion until I go to confession for that, and for whatever other mortal sins there might be. So it's that big of a deal. Now, so that was my family's rule, was right. So the church's rule, my family's rule: you have to go to Mass unless you're too sick to do anything else. And honestly, you guys, I have to tell you this: when I was a kid, I pretended to be sick many times, not many times. So my parents were pretty astute people. They did not fall for it too many times, but I did it often enough to even realize. So the rule, of course, the following rule, the next rule was if you were too sick to go to mass, then you were too sick to do anything for the rest of the day. And that means you had to sit, that meant you had to sit in your room by yourself doing nothing. And there were no TVs in rooms. There were no devices you could play with, or it was just sit there by yourself. So boring. And yet, you guys, I hated mass so much that I thought that was a good trade-off. Like to be able to do nothing the rest of the day to get out of 1 hour of going to church. So if you're like, I struggle with going to mass, like I was there. Then everything changed, by the way. That's changed for me right now, by the way. The Lord brought to my attention the reality of what happens in the mass. That the reality of the Eucharist, like it just blows my mind. And from that moment on, there's nothing more important than Jesus and the Eucharist. Nothing more important than worship. Now, we're going to talk about worship for a second. I hear so many people say things like, well, I go to mass, I don't get anything out of it. I mean, this is my sassiness, right? So I apologize for Father Sassy to come out here right now. The word of God that people throughout time, throughout space, across the world, long to hear. Do we have any idea how grateful we should be to be able to hear God's word anytime we pick up a Bible, but every time we go to mass? There literally are people around the world who would give anything to know that God was speaking to them.
Yes, ma'am.
And yet we're like, I don't get anything out of it. God spoke to you through his word. Not only that, but he then gave you himself. In the Eucharist, Jesus is giving us himself. And so we think like, yeah, I didn't get anything out of it. I only had God speak his word to me and then actually give his whole body, blood, soul, divinity to me. I don't get anything out of mass. Like, that blows my mind. It blows my mind how hard-hearted we are.
I'm gonna keep playing it. Don't check out on me. But this is like the main point. And this is why I have this Thomas Bullard quote up on the board. If we're bored at the mass, Thomas Bullard said that before he got this lesson. He said, I realize that if I make the mass boring, then it's going to be boring. And that if mass is boring, it's on us. It's because we're not engaging. It's because we're not open. It's because we really don't care for Jesus right now because we're really concerned about the big game later. We're concerned about homecoming and who we're going with and what our dress is going to be and who's in the bus. That's why the mass is boring, because that's what we care about right now. Okay, so that's the core of this lesson. It's up to you whether mass today or Sunday is going to be boring or not. How much are you willing to give God? How much effort you get out of mass, what you put into mass.
Like, I didn't get what I wanted, though. It wasn't very entertaining. It wasn't very engaging. And I think a lot of times that's what we approach the mass as. Mass is going to be entertainment for me. So it's supposed to like kind of do something to me, or it's supposed to be engaging, like enlightening. Like it's I'm there to learn something. Now, hopefully you're engaged. Hopefully that it is doing something to you, or hopefully you're learning something. But that's not the point of mass. The entire point of mass is worship. Sometimes people say things like, well, it's you get out of it what you put into it. And I guess I know what they're saying. First of all, we get the God word spoken to us. We get the Eucharist. We get God himself. That's not even the point necessarily. The point is worship. Across the world, across history, the heart of every religion is worship. The heart of every religion is worship. And the heart of all worship, this is so important for us to understand, the heart of all worship is sacrifice. So you can ask the question, who is worship about? So I always tell this story, and I'll tell it again right now. When I was a kid growing up, on my mom's birthday, she always has a birthday roughly the same time of year. So weird, in November. And so sometimes in Minnesota, relatively good weather. That plays into the story. So all of the kids would ask our mom, like, Mom, what do you want us to do for your birthday? And my mom would say something like, yeah, actually, it'd be really great if you kids would go out in the yard and rake the leaves. That's the weather thing. Great if you could go out in the yard, rake the leaves. I'm like, oh, Mom, like, no, what do you really want for your birthday? That's lame. Okay, well, it'd be great if you kids could just clean the whole house for me. Like, yeah. But Mom, what do you really want for your birthday? She's like, actually it'd be great if you could just go through the whole day and not fight with each other. I'm like, yeah, Mom, you don't really know us very well, do you? I mean, that was kind of the thing, right? So what would happen at the end of the day is my two older sisters, where they would, borrow the car, borrow some money and go shopping. get my mom something from the store. My older brother and I, we would ride our BMX bikes all over the neighborhood all day. And at the end of the day, we call her out onto the lawn and say, Mom, here is a trick that we learned for you for your birthday. Like, honestly, we did that. My little brother, he liked painting or drawing and coloring. So he would, color a little picture and give it to my mom for her birthday. Now, my mom would accept all these gifts from us and, she'd smile. But deep down, we knew that she knew that we didn't give her what she wanted. She had asked for something and we didn't give it to her. So, and on that day, on her birthday, our gifts weren't for her. Who were they for? Well, they were for us. My little brother got to do what he wanted to do and just say, here's my present. My older brother and I, we got to do what we wanted to do and say, oh, here's our present. My older sisters got to do what they wanted to do and say, here's our present. So in those moments, that gift wasn't about our mom. It wasn't even for our mom. It was for us. Worship is nothing at all about what we get out of it. Worship is completely about what we can give to God. Is what we can give to God. And what do we give to God? We give God our very best. Two things at least. Give God our very best. Number one, we offer up in the Mass, we offer up the sacrifice of the Son to the Father and the power of the Holy Spirit. The best thing we've ever been given, ever, is Jesus in the Eucharist. He is the sacrifice. He's the victim. He's the Paschal victim that was slain, that lives forever. And he's offered up to the glory of God the Father. So we give God the very best in Jesus. We also give ourselves. The very best we have of ourselves. The very best thing we've been given is Jesus. The very best we have in ourselves is ourselves. And so as we place the sacrifice on the altar, we're also placing ourselves on the altar and saying, Lord, please receive me as well. You see what's happening here. I'm going to Mass, not actually expecting to get anything back. I'm going to Mass prepared to give. Why? Because the Mass is worship. The heart of every religion is worship. The heart of every worship is sacrifice. The goal is not really to get anything out of this. The goal is to give God our best. Because why? Because he deserves our best. But if it's like, I'm not feeling anything, listen, we do not worship an experience. We worship a reality. And this is so important. I'm getting intense about this because it's so important. We don't worship an experience. We worship a reality, capital R, reality. The reality. We worship God. If I'm saying I don't go to Mass because I don't get anything out of it, what it reveals to me is actually I'm not interested in worshiping God. What it reveals to me is actually I want to worship myself. What it reveals to me is my heart doesn't belong to him. My heart's my heart, and my life is my life, and my time is my time. And worship is actually about me. But it doesn't have to be. You and I have been invited to Mass, which is the most powerful form of worship God has ever given to his people. Where we offer up the sacrifice of the Son, of the Father, and the power of the Holy Spirit. Where we offer up to the Father ourselves, our very best, who we are. We give without expecting to get. We worship a reality, not an experience. So the next time you have that twinge, that temptation to think, well, I'd like to go to Mass, but I don't get anything out of it. Just remember that. You already do. God's word and his very self. But that has never been the point. The point is to give.
So I'll just give a closing thought. So, yeah, even when everything's bad and you're in a really bad mood, can you show up to Mass and just say, I'm here, Jesus, to tell you I love you, to give yourself that much. That is the core. And that is the last thing I put on the list every year. How do you make Mass less boring? Go with the focus of worship. I'm here to give to Jesus because he deserves it because he gives me so much. And if that's your attitude, you'll never be bored and you'll never stop going to Mass because you're there, right reasons, right purpose. So you always got to evaluate that. If you're going just to feel good, you might be let down. All right, we're just waiting for the bell, and then you go to Mass. What better Mass prep?